Hi, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good day to every one of you. I back to Dr. Hani Kartini, Prof. Ahmad Abbas, Prof. Shuko, my fellow friends, and my beloved audience. My name is Muhammad Yamin bin Mat Syarhuddin and Lais Muhammad Syarhuddin with my mention number A181895. And today, I'm going to present to you my scientific poster presentation entitled Carbon Footprint Analysis of Bamboo Scrimber Flooring, Implication for Carbon Sequestration of Bamboo Forests and its Products. This research is made by Lei Gu, Yu Feng Zhou, Ting Ting Mei, Guomu Zhou, Lin Xu, which are from the A&F University, Zhejiang. Ladies and gentlemen, my fellow audience and judges, let's dive into the abstract of this scientific poster presentation. For this topic of carbon footprint analysis of bamboo scrimber flooring, implication for carbon sequestration of bamboo forest and its product, the abstract is the bamboo forest has large carbon sequestration capability and it plays an important role in mitigating climate change and global carbon cycling. The previous studies have mostly focused on carbon cycling and carbon stocks in bamboo forest ecosystem, whereas the carbon footprints of bamboo products have not received attention. China is the largest exporting country of bamboo flooring in the world, as everyone knows. So, for the introduction part of this presentation is to cope with climate change and global warming. Reduction of carbon emission is sought worldwide. From this topic, we also know that bamboo plants is actually have approximately 1,500 species worldwide, from the subfamily of Bambusoideae and the family of Graminae. The production of bamboo flooring in China has increased year by year, and estimating the carbon footprint of bamboo flooring is one of the very essential importance for the involved enterprises and consumers to evaluate their own carbon footprint. Let's dive into our objective for this research paper. The first one is to estimate the complete carbon footprint of bamboo flooring products, which is carbon stocks and direct or indirect emissions. The second one is to determine whether the bamboo flooring products are a carbon source or sink in the case study in China. So my fellow friends, ladies and gentlemen, and fellow judges, let's dive into methods. So for the method it's actually based on business to business B2B assessment method, which is this evaluation is used to assess CO2 emission and carbon stocks of product within the entire production processes. Because whenever we assess CO2 emission and carbon transfer ratio in each step of the production processes, including transporting bamboo cones and producing and packing the product, we can find that the produced 1 meter cube of bamboo scrimber flooring direct carbon emission from fossil fuels during transporting the raw materials or semi-finished product, from power consumption during production, and direct emission from applying additive. We have the calculation and we have the number, and we'll look forward into it. And the assessment boundaries includes 4 things. The first one is the carbon emission from fossil fuel used for transportation. The second one is the carbon emission from electrical power use. The third one is from the carbon emission from additive. The fourth one is the biomass carbon stocks stored in a bamboo flooring product. So, let's look deeper on the carbon emission from fossil fuel used for transportation. It's actually used from the carbon footprint that will look into the energy flux or the material flux or the storage sources. This is from the transportation. I give you the example. The harvested bamboo clumps were transported from Ziqi, Jinxi, Nancheng, and Lichuang to Ziqi and Jiangxi, in which the carbon emission varied based on the transportation. The transportation data was derived from the annual transportation reports of the companies. For the carbon emission from electrical power use is actually from the processing procedures, because we know to calculate direct carbon emission from consuming electrical energy using each processing procedure, we have to measure the involved machine powers operation. and the ideal operation time. So, for the carbon emission from the additive is actually from the glue and so on. Like for biomass carbon stocks, we can see according to the PAS 2050 specification, when a product contains biomass carbon that is stored in product for more than 1 year, this biomass carbon can be counted in the assessment of GHG emission of the product. If you look further into the table below that I have been put into my scientific poster presentation, we can see that type of dataset with its investigated object and also its measurable factors. If you look into the fuel energy, the investigated object is gasoline and diesel used from the transportation. The measurable factor is the weight of gasoline or diesel for transporting per 1 kilogram material per 100 kilometer distance, weight of transported material, transportation distance, and also carbon emission factor for gasoline and diesel. For the electric energy, the investigated object is electric energy consumed during the production processes. It's from the rated power of machine, ideal and operation time of applied machines, and carbon emission factors for the electricity as I mentioned before. The third one is for the carbon emission from the applied additive. The glue, the oil paint, the cartoon, etc. used during production processes. The quantity of applied additive for producing 1 meter cube of bamboo flooring is one of the measurable factors, and another one is the carbon emission factor for each additive. For the last one, the dataset is for the biomass carbon stock in products. And as we know, the investigated object is the carbon stock in a bamboo screenable flooring transfer from the raw bamboo clump, and the carbon transfer ratio during the production processes, and also dry weight of the bamboo flooring, and also carbon density is the measurable factor of this thing. And if you look forward into the carbon storage represented the carbon stored in the bamboo screenable flooring, and I have given you all a figure. It's actually a figure, the procedure sketch for producing bamboo screenable flooring. And as you want to know, where are the carbon footprint and the carbon emission come from? First of all, it's from a raw bamboo. And then it's go to the cutting process, chipping process, sorting process, boiling process, drying it, and then carbonizing it, and gluing it using the glue. Yes, this is where the emission come from. And then drying it, pressing it, aligning it, sorting it, polishing it, rough grinding it, slicing, finely grinding, prime coating by using the painter, and then packing it to the warehousing. Next, let's look into the results of this research. The first one, based on the carbon emission from fossil fuels during the transportation, we can see from the table 1 that have been stated, that is, the carbon emission from transportation for producing 1 meter cube bamboo screenable flooring was 30.94 kilograms CO2. Over 78% of the emission came from the transportation of semi-finished bamboo boards from the preliminary processing factory to the deep processing factory due to the long transportation distance. And almost 19% from the transportation of bamboo comes from the plantation to preliminary processing factory due to the heaviest transported weight. Well, the second one, we look into the carbon emission from the power supply for the production. To produce 1 meter cube bamboo screenable flooring, the factory generated over 143.37 kilograms CO2 emission due to the consumed electric energy during production. Among these procedures, pressings and defibering procedure were the largest contributors, accounting for 24.25% and 17.27% of the CO2 emission respectively. Well, if you look in the next table, for table 3, about carbon emission from applied additive, we can look that carbon emission from applied additive for producing 1 meter cube of bamboo screenable flooring was 78.34 kilograms CO2, of which glue and carton account for 82.77% and 16.48% respectively. Well, for biomass carbon stocks based on the 886.49 kg meter per meter cube dry weight per 1 cubic meter of the bamboo scrimber flooring, the 54.15% of carbon content of bamboo, the 44/12 carbon transfer ratio from carbon to CO2, and the 20-year service life of bamboo scrimber flooring. The biomass carbon stock of 1 meter cube bamboo scrimber flooring was 267.54 kg CO2. So let's dive into the last figure, which is about the carbon footprint assessment for produce 1 meter cube of bamboo scrimber flooring. So if you look deeper into the figure, to produce 1 meter cube bamboo scrimber flooring, carbon emission were 30.94 kg CO2 for transportation process, 143.37% for production process, 78.34% for additive materials, which is from the transportation, the consumption of energy, and also the production of process and the additive. And by using its data, subtracting the 267.54 kg CO2 emission carbon stock from the total of 252.65 kg CO2, carbon emission resulted in negative 14.89 kg CO2 carbon footprint for producing 1 meter cube bamboo scrimber flooring, indicating that this bamboo product is a net carbon sink, and this amount of carbon can be stored for at least 20 years in bamboo scrimber flooring. So, for the discussion, the higher the carbon transfer ratio during the production process, the larger the carbon stocks in the bamboo products, while increasing the hardness and density will improve the root resistance, moisture tolerance, and non-deform characteristic of the flooring is another possible way to mitigate the carbon emission. As conclusion, the result demonstrated that bamboo scrimber flooring is a negative carbon emission product that sequestered carbon for at least 20 years. Here is the references. And the acknowledgement for this research is supported by the National Social Science Fund of China and the Central Fiscal Forestry Science and Technology Extension Demonstration Project. I think this is all for my presentation. Thank you and Assalamualaikum.